Hello, it's Duncan Nisbet, the Roving Reporter for Let's Test, here today with Leo Hepis. Hi, Leo. How you doing?
Doing very well, thank you.
Cool. I want to thank you very much for your time. We've got an interesting conversation lined up today. Um, so, you guys, you and Ben Segebartt, are doing the keynote at Let's Test South Africa.
That's correct.
Yeah, and you're continuing the craziness of Let's Test with the all-inclusive keynote by crowdsourcing a book. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're testers at heart, and we're essentially testing an idea. And the idea is that you can crowdsource wisdom if you have a group of brilliant people that know a lot about software testing, and they all write a small piece. We can collect all that work and compile it into a book about software testing.
Fantastic. Right. I've got my cup of rooibos in typical South African style, my red bush tea. Let's get into it then. So you guys are the opening keynote, right?
Yes, opening. It's actually on the second day. The first day there's a workshop that introduces context-driven testing, which I think is a great idea because a lot of the time we go to these context-driven test work conferences, and not everybody has had experience on what that really means. So having an introduction to context-driven testing, I think, is a great idea.
That's brilliant. It kind of sets the scene, doesn't it?
Exactly. And I think it gets people warmed up too, which I think is something that I really appreciate because we're going to be starting early on Monday morning with our keynote, and having people warmed up from the day before is going to be very helpful for what we're trying to do.
Brilliant. So go on, talk us through your keynote. What's the kind of structure? How are you going to set the scene?
We will be talking a little bit about the connection between thinking and speaking and reading and writing, and
Hmm.
especially with writing as a method of uncovering our deeper insights. And I believe in that, and I believe that we have, as professionals and as people, a lot of insights that sometimes we're not even aware of. And writing is a method through which we can uncover those insights. And so what we're going to be doing at the keynote is go through some of the basic connections between thinking and writing and so forth, and then get right into some exercises that help bring out those insights. So, for example, we have some exercises that help us warm up, and warming up is something that we very often neglect when it comes to writing. We would not expect a pianist or an athlete to go and do something incredible without warming up, but we somehow expect ourselves to sit down at the computer or a notebook and somehow write this incredible novel or this incredible nonfiction book about software testing. And that's just not how it works. We have to warm up. And then some other exercises help us notice that we always have more in us to continue writing, and we have tools that allow us to structure things and create meaning where meaning was not there before. And then we have other techniques of silencing the critic, which is a big impediment on us writing down our thoughts. Is we're always concerned about, like, am I writing something stupid? I'm going to have my name underneath this thing, right? So it better be something good. Well, you don't always have to have your name underneath something. You can always draft a piece of work under a pen name, and then later on you can decide whether you want to touch your name on it or not. And
Okay.
so we'll be culminating with a clustering exercise, and we'll get a little bit of practice on that, which is a mind mapping type of exercise that does an amazing job of dumping onto the page what is on our right brain, so to speak, what is on the part of the brain that is concerned more with patterns and relationships and how we'll connect with everything, which is, sometimes competing with our so-called left brain that wants to be linear and logical and doesn't like absurdity.
Yeah.
And it's good to occasionally tell the left brain to take a back seat and let the right brain go crazy and dump a bunch of stuff on the page. usually in the form of some sort of a mind map graphic, which then we use to write the actual text that is readable.
Gotcha. It's like, have you heard of the instant gratification monkey? This,
What is that?
so from another book, it's a similar idea. Your rational brain is steering a ship, and it's like going, yes, we're going to get this done. We're going to write this blog post, and then you open up the internet, and then the instant gratification monkey grabs hold of the steering wheel, and before you know it, you're looking at cats dancing to torches shining on the light. So this gratification monkey just takes over. So it sounds like what you're saying here. Let's let the monkey get everything out onto the mind map, and then let's leave the rational rider. Let's get him back on board to kind of do the linear things between the nodes, I guess.
Yeah, that's a great metaphor for it,
Yeah,
actually. Yeah, let's let the part of our brains that is very playful get out there and do things that maybe the left brain thinks is irrational and shouldn't be done.
yeah,
Let's get out there on paper, and then we can decide using our rational brain whether we want to pursue this or not.
yeah. That's brilliant, fantastic. So, so not everyone there is going to be a writer. Okay, so we're not all born writers, although
Mm-hmm.
I claim to do a bit of writing. But the
Yeah.
so so is everyone expected to write something for the book?
Well, I think it is a safe place, and so there's no such thing as an absolute requirement that you have to participate. So there's various levels of safety. So for one, you do not need to write if you do not feel like writing.
Cool.
So you can just observe. This is a safe place. Nobody's going to be forced to do anything they don't want to do. But even if you do write, you do not need to submit, which is another safety valve, if you want. It's like you don't need to submit something for the book if you do not want to submit it.
Cool.
And then the third safety, I think, is that we will be encouraging people to write under a pen name at first,
Hmm.
because that is a way of liberating ourselves from fear of how our word is going to be interpreted. And so we can allow people to participate in the book under a pen name if that makes them feel more comfortable, or if somebody absolutely wants to have their own name submitted in under their piece, then they should definitely get the chance. So we will definitely change the pen names back to real names for anybody who wants to.
Okay.
But I think that as a first draft, I think it would be helpful if people submit under a pen name, and then Ben Segebartt and I are going to go away and spend the rest of the next 23 hours drinking a lot of coffee and sort of pulling all of this together, making minor changes or whatever, and then hopefully printing some of these things out and putting them in a public place where people can go and find the piece that was written by their pen name, telling us whether they agree with some of the minor edits that we've made. We're not going to be changing many things. We're just going to be making many minor edits. We don't have the time actually to make big changes.
Yeah.
But then if they look at it and they say, you know what, I thought about this for 24 hours and I actually really want to attach my name to this. I don't want the pen name. I want the real name. Then all they have to do is just write the real name underneath and pass it back to me and I'll change it. And so it will be, I think there are a few safety mechanisms so that people can feel more comfortable.
Oh, brilliant. That's good. And what about if people want to write in pairs? So they kind of come up with a joint idea.
We haven't really considered that. So that's a great suggestion. Let me think about that. Let me see how we can facilitate that. We will be doing, as part of the exercises, there will be times where we write in pairs. We'll cluster maybe in pairs, and then we share the information that came out of our right brain, so to speak, with the other person as a way to warm up and as a way to learn the exercise. Because sometimes the writing takes a little bit of time. So if you want to get better at one part of writing, like clustering, which is the mind mapping part of the exercise, then why don't we do a few of those so that we can get warmed up in that particular skill and then switch to actually clustering followed by writing. So that there will be some pair work in that sense, but we didn't really think much about the possibility of pair writing. So I think it's a great suggestion that we're going to be wondering about over the next few days.
Cool. Okay. So you've talked a bit about how people are going to be prepped with a kind of warm up. Is there anything they can do before attending a conference so they can hit the ground running, so to speak?
Well, I think that maybe the most important thing to do is that if you do not if you're not very comfortable with writing, is to not worry about it. It's not going to be we're gonna use tools to make this a fun activity. And like I said before, we have all these safety mechanisms so that people don't feel nervous. But if you do want to do something, I guess you could just write. Writing is a fantastic way to discover what is important to you. And one of the things we're going to be asking you in one of the exercises is to write about something that's very important to you in software testing.
Okay.
Another thing that would be very helpful is if you can think of topics that you believe the testing literature does not yet address. So like if you believe that there are some topics that are taboo or topics that are too difficult for the testing literature to address, maybe write some of those topic headlines on your own and tweet about them so that we can grab them off Twitter and be prepared somehow, be prepared to facilitate the writing of those topics at the workshop, at the conference.
Cool. So I guess you're going to need a hashtag, right, for that?
Or maybe use the Let's Test conference, or
Yeah.
maybe we'll come up with a hashtag and attach it to the YouTube video of the interview, and then we can collect those suggestions.
We're going to have checklists on this video, aren't we? In the notes.
What's that?
We're going to have a checklist of this video. Cool.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. God, I had a question then. Come on, brain. Right. Yes. So conferences are there to change our thinking. You're asking people to write something at the beginning of the conference. What if their opinion changes over the course of that conference? Which you would hope it would. Will they be able to update their blurb?
Well, sure. Yeah, of course. As long as it's happening during the conference, yes. And, one of the great things about going with an ebook as a mechanism of compiling this work is that this can happen during the conference. And we're going to set up some time. It's probably going to be Tuesday lunchtime, and that's going to be the absolute cut-off time for making any changes. The other thing that, like I said before, it's a safety for this kind of things is having a pen name up until the very, the cutoff point. If everybody has submitted under a pen name and only they know what the pen name is, and maybe only they and I know what the pen name is, then we can just leave it as is. And if they change their mind, they're like, oh, hey, I'm actually proud of this. I want my name attached to it. Then they can always switch the pen name back to the real name, which is a very quick search and replace activity on my computer.
Brilliant. Okay, so that segues quite nicely into what's going to happen with the book. So you get everyone to crowdsource this book. Where is it going to be published? Where can people get hold of it?
So we're still trying to figure that part out. I mean, in general, ebooks are very easily publishable and they're made available. We're trying to figure out whether we want to have a code that is needed so that participants can control who they want people to download the book from, or it be made available. Conferences often publish their proceedings.
Okay.
So it's not an uncommon concept to have some of the wisdom in a conference shared in a very public way. So we're trying to figure that part out. We're not exactly certain yet how that's going to work out. However, I am pretty certain that everybody in the conference will be able to get a copy of that electronic version of the crowdsourced wisdom. We've also looked into whether we can produce a print-on-demand version of the book, and that is still being investigated.
Fantastic. Okay, and so I guess this is the formal bit. Who's going to own the book?
Well, the work of every writer is immediately owned by the person who wrote the work. So, like whether you write a blog or even something you wrote in a journal, you typically, unless you're in a country that has not signed on to the copyright and intellectual property conventions, typically the work is owned by the person who wrote the work, and they have to provide authorization to others to publish it. So part of what we'll do is we'll provide some sort of simple agreement that says that, you know, I give you permission to publish this in this kind of ebook. So this is true of like whether you paint or write music or write fiction or write nonfiction. The moment you put your words on paper or your painting on paper or canvas, you own the piece of work. And some registrations of copyright are helpful in proving later on that you own the work, but they're not the final arbiter of whether you own the work. So you can challenge somebody if somebody else grabs your work and publishes it and registers it with a copyright office or something, but you can prove that you actually authored it before. Then you know, as long as you can prove, you actually have you probably have the law on your side. Now I should also say I'm not a lawyer. and this is not legal advice. If this is something that really concerns you, do not, participate in the writing, just observe. But I think that overall, most of us go through life not really getting a chance to get published. And I've met so many people who say, well, one day I want to write a book, but a book is a big thing. And it takes a lot of effort to write a book. And I think that one great way to write a book is to co-author it with a bunch of other brilliant people. Because if you do the math, if you have 50 to 80 attendees at a conference and they each write 1,000 words, you end up having enough text to fill the size of a novel, right? A novel is about 80,000 words or 90,000 words or something like that. Now, 1,000 words, is that a lot or is that not a lot? Well, I think that if you take a medium-sized email that you wrote this past week for work, you'll find out that it's somewhere between 150 and 300 words. So it's probably around 200, 250 words. A small email can be 100 words or less, and a large email can be even more than that. So, how often do we write a medium-sized email? We write, I can easily write a medium-sized email about something I care about at work in 15 minutes. And if I have an hour, I can write 4 of those. And if I can write 4 emails of 250 words about topics I care about, I actually wrote 1,000 words, and I can be a co-author at this conference for the book on testing.
Brilliant. So is that a criteria? Are you aiming for 1,000 words, or is there a range? Is it a ceiling of 1,000?
I would say it would be nice to get about 1,000 words from everybody. Obviously, the number of words as a metric is not an absolute indication. I mean, especially at this conference, we wouldn't want to tie a numerical metric to the quality of our work. But something like that would be a good indication that we're doing enough amount. But I do not mind if we only get 20 words from every participant and there's 50 participants or 8 participants, I'll put all that in an ebook. And in some cases, people may choose to write poetry. We'll throw some examples up on the screen of simple poetry. One of the great ways to learn about writing is emulation, where you look at a pattern of how somebody else has accomplished something and you can say, well, I think I can do something similar to this. And it might feel to people that it is some sort of cheating, or we should always be original in our writing. But the truth is, I did not invent the English language, and you did not invent the English language either. Somebody else invented all those words. And as far as structure of sentences, I did not invent the structure of sentences, and nobody ever, I don't know anybody who has. It's basically, we're borrowing from everybody all the time. We're borrowing from other people who have done things with the language before us. And we can look at the structure of a poem and get ideas on how, a haiku is a well-known structure that we can borrow from and write haikus about software testing. And wouldn't that be wonderful to have a book on software testing in which people express their anguish or their joy of trying to hunt down an irreproducible bug in the form of a haiku?
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
It's good.
So I do not have any preconceptions about how large this thing is going to be, this book. But I'm more interested in getting a larger number of people that are excited about contributing. And if everybody contributes just a haiku of like 17 words or however it works out to be, that's fantastic. We'll just do a collection of haikus.
And at the end of the day, if they write something, then they started thinking a bit more deeply about what's on their in their brain, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's
Yeah.
writing has this ability to help us know ourselves and how we stand on different topics. It also has another function that I found really helpful, which is it comes from my friend Mary Jo, who more than a decade ago told me that she said, "I have a lot of things to say, but I don't speak a lot, and so I have a lot of things to write." And that stuck with me because I think in the high tech industry, there's a lot of us that are more introverted than extroverted.
Hmm.
And so having a medium through which to express what's really happening in our brains is a way of getting happier and making maybe a mark on the world or even just merely allowing ourselves to get feedback about how we think so that others can influence how we think. So it's another one of the factors that I keep in mind when I'm thinking about introducing writing to people that maybe have not written before. Is that I will be giving them an opportunity to express themselves that they may not that possibly they do not normally have.
Gotcha. And then that ties very nicely back into your keynote about how the trio of thinking, writing, and speaking complement each other and strengthen
Yes.
each other.
Yes. I mean, merely by their sharing of language, we can see that if you have some mastery in the written language, you will probably have some mastery in speaking the language and probably some mastery in thinking when your thinking involves words. Um, but I don't. I understand that there are different parts of the brain that deal with creating speech versus understanding speech and so forth. And so this is not a one-to-one correspondence. But I think that since they all tend to include language, there is some sort of overlap that tells us that if you strengthen one of them, you're strengthening the other ones in some capacity.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, thank you, Leo. I haven't got any more questions to ask. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Well, the only thing I would say is that I think this is going to be fun, and I think
Sounds it.
that yeah, I think that if you're nervous about writing, please don't be. I don't know how else to say that. I think there's going to be, like I said before, there's going to be some safeties put in place, and you're going to be surrounded. I was there last year. I was at South Africa, Let's Test last year, and I was surrounded by brilliant minds. As a country, South Africa is a very uplifting. They have a very uplifting mindset.
Hmm.
They're thinking about how things are going to be even better moving forward. So it's a great space where to think about testing and think about what we can do better in the future. And everybody has their insights and experiences. And I just look forward to getting all those brilliant minds together and crowdsourcing some of that wisdom into the book on testing.
Fantastic. Okay. Thanks, Leo. So, do you want to summarize or do you want me to summarize?
Please go ahead.
All right. Okay. Correct me when I'm wrong. Okay. So, at the Let's Test South Africa, in your keynote, you are going to ask people to contribute some text to go to a crowdsourced book on testing, the book on testing. I think
That's correct.
it's been labeled as. And you're going to do some warm-ups to help people get used to writing. You're going to give them some tools, some tips, some tricks to help start getting the creative juices flowing. And they can write under a pen name if they want. They can write under their real name. They can edit what they write if their ideas change throughout the conference, which would be awesome. The book will be published in an ebook, and hopefully the attendees will get a free copy.
Yep.
And if you don't want to write, you can still observe and see other people working through their thinking processes and writing down their thoughts. And hopefully, it being a conference, there'll be some conferring throughout the conference about what people have written or what they're thinking about or what they haven't written.
Absolutely. I think you captured it pretty well.
Fantastic.
And the only thing I would add is that I think it's going to be fun. And what Ben Segebartt and I have been doing is working in ways to make this a fun activity. So I think that no matter what, even if you choose not to submit your piece to the book, I think and I'm hoping that you will find it fun.
Quality. Oh yeah, and one more thing in preparation, try and think of some headings or some topics that you think are slightly controversial that you might want to explore when you get to the conference.
That would be fantastic.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Leo. I will catch up with you soon.
Great.
And thank you again for your time. All the best.
Thank you.
All the best in Let's Test South Africa. It sounds like you're going to have a blast. I'm not jealous
Great.
at all.
Thank you.
Thanks. All the best. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.